Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So we're in the middle of trimming out the barn dominium, and I'm not sure when this video might drop compared to when you might see this work getting done on the barn dominium project, but I will go ahead and throw, I think, a link over here where you can check out the barn dominium playlist. We've been working on this for a while and we're at the trim stage, and I had some people asking me over on Instagram how we do our pre-assembled windows, how that works, and really how beneficial can that be. So this window behind me, you can see we need to install a jamb extension, and then we've got to install casing around this window. And when I started, what I used to do is I would cut a piece, I'd put it in, I'd nail it. I'd cut the next piece, I'd nail it. And I'd cut all 4 of these jamb extensions in, I'd nail them in, and usually I'd fight it because trying to get it perfect. Then I would come back behind and I'd cut one piece of casing at a time. I'd install it, try to make sure the miters were good, and it was always a struggle. So I'm gonna show you how you can make this a lot easier on yourself, not only time-wise, efficiency-wise, but also how you can do a much better job doing this so it looks perfect, okay? So the first thing I'm gonna do is get my dimensions. Pretty simple. I need to know what my frame of the window accounts to. And now I've already wrote that down on my handy little scratch board with cardboard. So let's go ahead and pre-assemble this casing jamb combo, and I'll show you how it's done. All right, so now we have our 4 jamb pieces, top and bottom, and our 2 sides. We're gonna go ahead and lay those out, and then we will get them put together. So the first thing I like to do is always kind of get a feel for what side of this wood always looks the best, and that is what I'm going to install towards the inside, because that's gonna be the finished side. Okay, now we're gonna use glue, which is gonna obviously make this stronger, something that's hard to do when you're doing them piece by piece. Now, you might wanna just spread that glue out, make sure it's got full contact, because the glue is what's going to make these trims look good over time. Now I'm using a 16 gauge Paz load, and I'm putting 2 nails in, top and bottom, just to hold it temporarily, and then I'm gonna come through and put some GRK trim screws in. And really, these fasteners are only holding this in, getting a really nice compression fit so that that glue can set up and cure. And we're gonna go around and do this on all 4 corners. Now you can see I've got a little bit of a warp on this trim board. This is another huge benefit to doing this on the table pre-assembled, because it's gonna allow you to get nice, tight joints on every piece. So once we nail it, we got the GRK trim screw, small head, no pre-drilling required. I love these little screws. You know, the real advantage is right here, it's very easy to make sure that all of these joints are tight, but also that everything is right where it needs to be. When you've got to do this in the field, actually on the window, unless you have everything shimmed perfectly, it's very hard to get all of these joints to line up exactly where you want them. And if you've done this before, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because I've been there. I don't remember who I first saw this from, but this is nothing new. This is not some miracle thing that I developed, but I had a bunch of people asking me about it, which means that there's still a lot of people out there that don't do this sort of assembly, and I think they would greatly benefit. Okay, so last screws here. And then our jamb extension frame will be assembled. All right, so look at this. This is a great example. You see this nail? This nail popped out, and if I was assembling these in, the actual window box itself, I might never see this. Now, that's not a good thing. That's not going to be as strong of a connection, obviously. So by doing it here, I can also increase my quality control, making sure that everything is done, even though you can't necessarily see it, or you wouldn't be able to see this if you were installing it in the location, nor would you even be able to come in from the bottom and nail up. You would be setting these pieces in and just nailing in from the side. So not only is it a better connection, but all of these fasteners are hidden too. So that's a huge plus when you're looking at a finished product. Less things to cover up and finish is always going to be better. So now we have this nice jam box, and I've got a lot to do, and for efficiency, purposes, I'm going to go ahead and do them all, and then I'll bring you guys back when it's time for the next step, which will be the casing. Okay, so once we have our casing cut, we need to put our pocket hole screws in it because that's how we're actually going to fasten these trims together. Glue is going to be the ultimate bond between the corners, but I'm going to go ahead and put pocket holes because that makes it hold really nice and tight while I'm assembling and also the glue is drying. So this is the Kreg Jig. There's a bunch of different other brands. There's even a Kreg Jig Foreman, which is on my list of things to get. But what I'm doing is maximizing this pocket hole out towards the tip of the miter. And then I'm going to maximize it on the inside. And I'll show you what I'm talking about after I get done drilling these holes. So here are the pocket holes. I'm trying to get this pocket hole as close to here as possible and this one out as far as possible. And that's so I can get as much clamping power across this whole joint. And I don't have to do 3. I just do it because why not? It doesn't take a lot of extra time. And if it gives me a little bit extra holding power, then I'm happy. And so now I have pocket holes on both sides of my side piece. I will not install any to my end piece here, or this is the top and bottom piece, because now these will go together like so. They'll get glued, and then these pocket hole screws are what's going to hold it together. So I'm going to finish these up, and then we'll do the assembly of the casing. Okay, so now that we have our pieces of casing with the pocket hole screws, we've got them all cut up. Now it's time to assemble them. And this is really where, in my opinion, the benefit of assembling here at this table versus by the window, on the window, whatever, this is really, really important. One thing that I will note is that I'm putting the good side down. This is the back side, you won't see it. Another perk, these miters are going to be put together, they're going to be joined without any fasteners visible on the outside. So we got the boxes over here that were all put together with hidden fasteners that you're not going to see. Now we're going to put our casing together with hidden fasteners that you're not going to see. So we're going to go ahead and take our glue. We're going to apply a generous amount. Make sure we spread it out. I don't have like a little brush or anything. I just use my finger. End of the day, I am just a post framer. And then we're going to go ahead and put these together, get them as tight as we can visually. We're going to take our Kreg clamp, and this is key too. By clamping this down to this nice surface, it's giving us a very flat bottom, which is the finished side, or as flat as possible. Now we're gonna take our screws, pocket hole screws. We're gonna install these. You'll see glue is oozing out, which that's good. Take the clamp off. Just kind of hand wipe the excess. That's a nice clean joint. And then we'll just move down to the next one. Okay. Nice tight joint, screwed together. We'll keep going around. Now, believe it or not, these screws are great, but really I'm just utilizing them for clamping power. And when this glue dries, it's gonna be much stronger than those screws. Nice, that's perfect. That's how you know you got a good dimension all the way around. Your miters are good because I screwed all three, and this fourth one is right where it should be. That is good. And yes, you can use biscuit joints here. You can use dominoes. I've done it where I've used a mixture of pocket hole screws and biscuit joints. With this being an inch and a 16th thick material, there's gonna be a lot of glue. I just want those screws to hold that together. And then when it sets up, I'm gonna be perfect. All right, so that is the window casing frame. So it's kind of like a picture frame. We pre-built it. It's gonna give us really clean miters, which you'll see soon. We don't wanna show you too early. I'm gonna go ahead and make up the rest of these, and then you can see I've got a pile of them started over here and a pile of my boxes, and then we'll assemble those together. Also, as I pick these up, I just wipe off any excess glue. That'll save me from sanding more than I need to later. Okay, so now that we have our casing boxes, we've got our frames here. These are our jam extensions. We're gonna go ahead and set the jam extension down, and then we can bring in this piece of casing. What do you mean? Yeah, it's fine. And then I'm gonna use, this is the Martinez Micro, and hopefully it's focused, but what I love about this is it has a 1/4 inch little nubby that sticks out. And that's what I usually do all my reveals. So I'm just gonna check, even though I did measure these, put them at a 1/4 inch, and then I'm gonna nail. And you might be saying, Kyle, why aren't you gluing these? So the stainer and I talked, and the glue, if I put it on, it's gonna cause a lot more work to get rid of that glue before the stain goes on. And we messed up a couple windows. I messed them up because I made a wrong calculation on a measurement. One of the things about pre-assembly you have to remember, double check your measurements. Don't just do it once and start cutting. I did it once, started cutting, made a couple wrong, had to pull them apart. Greg, how hard was it to pull the nails out?
It was pretty difficult, yeah.
These nails will not come out. We had to break them all off. So I feel pretty good about the connection, and being a dark stain, I'm not worried about that little crack if it moves, because the wood will move. I'm worried about the miters. So that is what I'm most concerned with. And these will definitely hold for a very long time. Normally I might, especially if it's going to be a painted trim, I would glue all of this together. So we're just going to go around. I hit the corners first. Here you go. And then what we're going to do is Greg's just going to take this square. We're going to hit the middles, make sure they're 1/4 inch. Greg, hit this guy right here. I see a little bow. Yeah, nice. Oops, sorry. And we're just going to go around. Once again, this is a 16 gauge pas load. I'm shooting 2 inchers, so I don't want a monster nail, but I want something big enough to really grab. Here, let's push this over. Let's make sure it's level. All right, so now that they're put together, we have a nice window casing box to be installed. Actually, it's got to be stained first. So we're going to set these here. We just did these casing and the boxes, so the glue was not 100% dry. We could get it exactly where we want it, because by doing perfect 45s on our miters, putting it together, it's actually making this a nice square box. We'll let it harden. Tomorrow, we'll come in and we'll sand all these joints, make everything pretty, and then the stainer will be able to pre-stain everything as one unit. And what really is nice about that is because you'll notice all this wood, there is a little bit of inconsistency in the exact species of wood. So, you know, not all poplar is going to be exactly the same. You got different colors, and when you stain it, it could take a different color when you put that stain on. If you just stain a bunch of pieces, go put them up, they might look odd. Being pre-assembled, the stainer can actually apply the stain in different ways to different pieces to try to get them to look all the same. Once again, giving you a better end result. Okay, so here's when I flip over one of these trims, these pre-made casings. I mean, this is what you're gonna see. You're gonna see some little bit of glue oozing out, but you're gonna notice that you've got 4 really tight miters. Okay, now you'll notice this one, there is a little bit of, you know, this side is sticking up just ever so slightly. And that's gonna happen because you've got 5/4 board that is not perfectly flat. We're installing it on this really flat piece of 1 1/8 LP Legacy. So we're doing the best we can to get these as flat as possible. You see where the glue comes out, but this is what the actual trim is gonna look like before we assemble it onto one of the window jamb boxes, which this is for that far one on the left. And even though that doesn't look perfectly pretty right now, just wait till we're done. It's gonna look awesome. All right, so we've got our window casing boxes all installed, and it's dried overnight, so the glue is good and hard, but now we gotta get rid of it because I did not take the time, and I don't ever usually take the time to clean these joints when I build them, because I know I'm gonna rough sand them anyway. So I've got a couple different sanders. This is not a Milwaukee sponsored, I just have Milwaukee sanders. And I'm gonna try to get these joints looking good. Because the glue oozes out, I gotta get rid of it. So I'm gonna hit, I think this is a 1, this is like a, I don't know what grit this is. This is a, okay, this is an 80 grit. And I actually have I think a 60 or something on the belt sander, or maybe it's a 110. If I really got to take off a bunch of stuff, like we'll use that over here. But I'm gonna go ahead and hit this with the 80. So that's gonna take it down real quick. And then I'm just gonna use, I've got a 220, or no, sorry, 110 on my orbital. I like the orbital. For just really smoothing up the joint, making sure that when you run your hand on here, you can't see nothing. We got a little bit of detail work that we got to get in here and remove some of that glue, but that's what we're going to do basically on all of these. You can see some of this check mark. You can see the checking in the board, and that we're going to take out. Now Now this guy, when I get to here, I'm just gonna pull out the belt sander because it's quicker. You just have to be more careful. And we'll just take all this right off. Then I'll come back in. And then I'll run my sanders over, but look at the difference. Oh, this thing's gotta be hooked up to a vacuum. Now, the reason I like to use a vacuum is I couldn't see this before, but you see this right here? This is where some of the glue has oozed out, is in the wood, and we want to remove that entirely. And so the vacuum gets a lot of this dust out of here so we can see that. Otherwise, this won't stain the same. So there we go. That's what we're gonna do on all these windows. We'll get them all sanded up, prepped for the stainer, and then once they're stained, we'll show you the install. All right, so we got the window, and now we have our stained jamb assembly. Okay, this has got the extension jamb, the casing, and this is gonna go in like so. If I just put it in there and nail it, I can't control where it goes around the window, and we want a nice consistent reveal around the jamb on the window itself to our extension jamb. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna set this aside. Now typically if you're gonna be doing this piece by piece, you're gonna cut, let's say, your bottom, you're gonna shim it, you're gonna get it where you like it, nail it. Maybe you're gonna get your top in, your sides, shim them, nail them. This is what we do. Okay, I'm gonna take some screws. These are actually just some cabinet screws, and they have a nice flat head on them. And I'm gonna go ahead and screw them in right alongside the frame, in line with the frame. And we're not gonna screw them all the way in. And then I'm also gonna go in line with my grill in the sash. And you'll see why I'm doing that. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, now that I have all those in, I'm taking a scrap piece of the stock material, and I'm actually going to set it on the screw head and look at the reveal. So this one, it's pretty close, right where I want it. This one, not even close. So I'm actually going to go in. I like it. Up top, you can see, barely have any reveal, so we're just gonna suck this in a little more till we have a little bit more reveal that we want. And I'm just gonna go around on each one of these, doing the same thing. So you can see there's a good example. I'm like flush. So we're just gonna drive this screw in a little bit more. You can just fine tune this to whatever you want. And now that we have that done, those screws in, we can go ahead and set the jamb in. And we want it to be tight. See that? So now it's pushing up against those screws where we want it. So when I go to put a nail here, it can't go any further. It's going to suck tight. It's not going to stay in there without me holding it clearly. It's not that tight. But those screws are acting like our shims. And remember that we put those screws in line with our grills and the frame of the window sash. That's so I know where they are so I don't hit them with a nail. So now that is going to tighten it up to all those screws. And then I just take and there we go. Go ahead and nail it off. Now we've just got some nails to putty, and then the stainer is going to go ahead and finish this out. But that's how easy it is. It's a little bit more prep work, but way easier in the long run to get perfectly tight miters that can be glued and screwed versus gluing in place, clamping, and trying to keep them perfectly tight. This gives you the ability to make it a lot better for the end result. All right, now I know I just showed you a very small window, one that you could theoretically do a quality job putting miters together because you can reach all the miters, check and measure. But what about a window this big? Unless you have a second set of hands or a partner to work with you, this could be very challenging to do one piece at a time. Watch how easy this is. I've already done my screws for the sake of the video. One guy, and you're done. We've got all the screws in, so it's nice and tight where it's supposed to be. And I can just go in here and put my nails in. So I think that really, better represents how this process can be really beneficial to a small crew, somebody that wants to be super efficient with quality in mind, because there's no other way to do that so quickly that I know of that's going to be that good, that quick, that quality. So yeah, I hope that this helped you guys. I know that this doesn't pertain to all of you, and some of you maybe don't do jam extensions. You get them on your windows so that when it's done, all you have to do is case them. You can still pre-assemble your casing to get those perfect miters, and I would recommend that. But we obviously have to do a jam extension with these big, thick post frame walls. So there you go. Maybe there's something in this video that helped you guys. If there is, if you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. This is the barn dominium build, and there's a ton of interior content. Not that I'm an interior master, but I have done a lot of it over the last 15 years. So if there's something there that I can share with you, I will. So make sure you're subscribed, follow along, and I'm gonna go ahead and keep installing these windows, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.